All right, man. How's the weather out there in Tennessee?
It is warming up again. I've got the old toque on. That's a Canadian term for all you south of the border people. But it is warming up. We had this real crazy cold snap where it was like 10 degrees, 15 degrees Fahrenheit for about a week.
Did you
But
guys get
it's
snow?
turning.
You did, didn't
We
you?
did, but we a while back now. It's been a while.
Okay.
That all went away, and then it turned again, and we got this real crazy cold snap. But coming
Was the
back out.
snow a natural disaster with cars just piled up everywhere?
I mean, we always get a little bit here, so
Okay,
it wasn't
okay.
too crazy. But last year, the year before this year, we had like 8 or 9 inches and everything shut down. It was,
Oh yeah. We haven't got snow here. We usually get a couple dustings and then one like for here anyway, like quasi decent storm could be 3 to 6 inches. But as we record this, it's end of January, early February, and we still haven't got a single dusting. So we'll see if we get hit soon. But
yeah.
the housekeeping, everybody out there, we appreciate you listening, viewing, everything that you do. You want to help support the show? Go to variednotrandom.com. Check out all the cycles that we offer that'll just seamlessly upload into the old btwb app, and you can get your first pull-up, push-up, handstand walk, toes to bar, ring muscle up, and I'm talking strict varieties, by the way, on these things. You can have some on-ramp programs in case somebody's getting back into fitness, on-ramp for body weight, dumbbell, barbell. There's running programs. There's just squat, dead, press, bench, snatch, like that stuff as well. So we got what you need. Check those out. If you are a gym owner, go to btwb.com. Get your gym on the all-in-one. BTWB, as far as I'm concerned, best workout tracking out there. And now the all-in-one also gives you the ability to manage your gym, do billing, class management, everything you need in one place. So check that out, btwb.com. I'm going to kind of toss it over to you because when you and I were kicking back topics today, this was one that you had on your mind. So what do we and this is going to be very real and raw. We haven't done a lot of prep, so this is going to be my my unscripted stuff here. So what do you got?
Well, I've been thinking a lot lately, Pat, about some of the things that my day job brushes me up against. And as a broad topic, I've been really considering the utility of competition. And I'm not talking about on the high level, that's kind of reserved for these athletes that are on the fringe and make it their entire career, but for the average person or for somebody who's just a little bit more, invested in getting fit. What does competition offer as an outlet? And so I thought it might be kind of fun to just explore the good, the bad, and the ugly of competition through the lens of the average person who's, kind of got the bug. They're all in, so to speak. And, they might be dabbling a little bit with some of these extracurricular activities. So what's the good, bad, and the ugly there?
Are you, when you say this as an outlet, are you talking about what is the influence of high visibility or high profile competitions for somebody that wants to join, or somebody sees that and does it get more people into gyms working out?
None of that at all, actually. The idea is you, Pat, you started getting into a gym. You've gotten the CrossFit bug after a couple of months of, in the beginning, you're like, what is this? A couple months go by, you're like, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. Maybe a year or two goes by, now you've got some skills under your belt, and a weekend throwdown comes up.
Okay.
And somebody says, hey, maybe you should throw your hat in the ring.
Gotcha.
Good,
Okay.
good, bad, and the ugly around something like that.
Of participating.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's probably a couple things there. The good is, you're engaged in an athletic endeavor for the weekend. There's probably gonna be some fun camaraderie, some joking around. You're gonna probably get to stress test yourself a little bit, get outside your comfort zone. All of those things are useful and beneficial. You'll probably learn something about yourself physically and mentally. Those are all good as well. Those are some of the pros that leap out to my mind initially. There are not potentially some cons, so some things I think people should be aware of. But
I think they definitely are.
I would say generally, those are good things, like, right? Camaraderie, fitness, throwing down afterwards, learning about yourself. You get a cool t-shirt, whatever it happens to be, you snap some cool photos, and you most likely, ideally, I should say, maybe not most likely, but ideally, have a fun experience no matter where you placed, and you walk back into the gym reinvigorated with some pep in your step and purpose as to why I'm going to show up every day and train hard. That would be my,
Yep.
like glass half full, good stuff that could come out of it.
Yeah, I like that second part that you ended with there. And I think that's really important in the way that I'm framing it, where you step back into the gym, maybe the bonds that you have with some of the people that you competed with or that, supported you through that competition. You feel like a sense of ownership and accountability. And so you keep coming back a little bit more regularly. I think that's really powerful. So on the back end of that, that's kind of what happens post-comp in the best case scenario. I think pre-competition, the biggest utility that I see for the average person that might want to do something like this, and it could be a turkey trot. It doesn't have to be a CrossFit competition. It could be whatever. I think having a midterm goal that you can kind of hang your hat on and it's coming in a couple months and it kind of gives you a reason to keep showing up. For somebody who's in that kind of intermediate phase, I think that can be really powerful. Because let's face it, man, in the beginning, you're in the honeymoon phase. You're just PRs left and right. They're just falling out of the sky.
They're falling out of the sky.
And that's motivation enough to keep showing up, right? You're like, hey, this is great. I love it. I'm learning new things every day. Every time I come to the gym, I'm getting better. I can see the skill improving. I can see my fitness just like gaining momentum. But sooner or later, that slows down.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. And so in the intermediate phase, you're a couple years deep at this point. You're not learning as many new things because you've already kind of acquired a lot of those skills. The PRs are a lot tighter if they do happen.
Daily grind now, man. It's the daily grind.
You said it. And so what is it that kind of keeps you motivated to just like keep slogging through it? And for a lot of people, it can be that like, oh, I got this thing coming up that I can train for. And I can do it with my buddies, or I can talk some smack to my friends or whatever. And that kind of can serve as this little bit of external motivation in the best scenario to kind of keep you coming back. And I'll take that like a different view as well, kind of using that same concept, that if you're a coach or an affiliate owner, that can be really cool too. If you have that knowledge that certain people are motivated by that can be another tool that you can offer to people in that, so that maybe they are encouraged to stay consistent. You know what I mean? There's a certain competitive mindset that is like, hey, encourage them to do this means that you get to coach them more regularly because now they're showing up consistently to try to achieve this goal. So that can be a cool thing too.
I think, and it depends upon the size of the competition, right? I mean, but with regards to like the average Joe in the local comp, most local comps you probably never heard of, heard of the big ones. They get a lot of notoriety, a lot of publicity. They can hire media teams, but like so-and-so throwing down at the gym down the street or whatever, and it's the local area that knows about it. I get a lot of people from my community that I see all the time posting that they, in their local area, like just got the bug and went somewhere and threw down for the weekend with their buddies. And I'm sure there's probably a negative story here or there, but I can tell you overwhelmingly when they post about their experience, like in our private Facebook group, whatever, it's all positive. It's all good. They had a blast. They got cool photos. They finished where they wanted to. They didn't finish where they wanted to. They surpassed the expectations. They didn't. There's a whole range of emotions and outcomes, but it's always usually fun and a good experience. So from the outside looking in, I would say that for most people, finding a good group of people that you can laugh with, that you're maybe of similar ability level, and then finding a good local comp that appears to have their ducks in a row. Maybe that's something that we could chat about in a second. That you, if you're gonna sign up for your first race, you could sign up for the 5K turkey trot or try to qualify for the Boston Marathon, right? I mean, so knowing that you're dipping your toe in the appropriate pond is probably a really smart thing to put a little bit of time, thought, and effort into, and dipping your toe in the right pond for where you are in your fitness journey will also probably dictate whether you look in the rearview mirror as having a memorable experience or feeling like you got run over from a steamroller.
Well, it could be memorable, but not for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, well, and it is kind of interesting. Like, this is something I, kind of keep a little bit of a mind towards.
I bet.
When you think about just the broader ecosystem out there, it is pretty insane when you start looking at some of these hosting platforms that they host competition leaderboards and weekend throwdown stats and stuff like that. I mean, we're talking about thousands of independently run, local
All over the place.
competitions, that are happening all over the world, just organically. And I think that that's really indicative that this is important to people, regardless of, the notoriety or like how far they want to take it. That's almost irrelevant at the end of the day. But the outlet, having something that you can use your fitness towards and having something that you can kind of hang your hat on and say, yeah, I'm going to show up, I'm going to do that thing, can be really powerful.
And you might find another gear, it's a unique individual that just, Miko Salo, as we've said before. You can be,
you can say that again. He is one of one. That man is, I love Miko to death, but he is one of a kind.
That can just be alone in their garage, training on a cold morning with no music, and set themselves on fire with intensity. Most people, the human creature, when surrounded by their friends and there's something on the line and the crowd's cheering and the DJ nailed the perfect track, they're probably going to exert themselves at a level that they wouldn't get normally. And that is wildly beneficial, not only for you physically, but also mentally as well. Like I said, you will learn something about yourself. And so just for that, for nothing else, is going to be a good push. I mean, I can remember, what the heck was it? I feel like I can dose myself up pretty good solo. Certainly no Miko Salo, that's for darn sure. But I remember, and I don't like competitions personally. Like I don't enjoy that aspect. I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want it. I don't like it. But I remember being basically peer pressured to do it from
best reason.
Yes.
Best reason to do a lot of things, I would say.
From people at HQ, and then also my wife. It was, I think, maybe
was
it was
I
like,
one of them? I'm sorry, Pat, if I peer pressured you into.
Was it like a partner series or something we did? It was filmed. It was down in the gym, and I feel like it had deadlifts and box jumps. I can't remember. There was two people going back and forth, and I didn't want to do it. They asked me to do it. I didn't want to do it because I hate it, and I was quite outspoken as to how much I thought it was a terrible idea, and I didn't want to do it. And everybody could just pack sand. I was so basically aggressive with it. They were like, okay, so we're not going to talk to Pat for a while. And then I remember I called my wife because she was visiting me down there. I was like, hey, this one, can you believe they want to do this? She goes, that sounds like fun. We should do it. I was like, oh, for God's sake, are you kidding me? So then I did it. Out of peer pressure. And I basically almost had a heart attack and died, because I went so hard because everybody was yelling and screaming. Yeah. And then my wife's fitter than I am, so I'm trying to not slow her down too much. It was like a near-death experience. So point being, you will probably, even if you have the ability to push pretty darn hard on your own, you'll probably yet find another gear if you do throw your hat in the ring for a competition.
Yeah, I think we've all experienced that in one form or another.
Probably the Boz versus Row.
Oh God, man, those were rough days. I'm not macho enough to pretend that I'm one of these no quit kind of guys, I can be tough enough when the situation demands it, but there are plenty of other times where I'm like, I'm done. Right. I don't care who's watching. We're done. And thankfully, I don't feel like I had too many during that time frame, but man, there were definitely moments where you're crowd's going nuts. It's loud. There's all this expectation, and you're like,
it's just you and him. The camera's on YouTube, period, end of story. It's going to get tons of views afterwards. You're going to go pretty darn hard compared to working out just, solo in the backyard. So anyway, all under the umbrella of a well-run, fun competition at the appropriate level for your athletic ability, or maybe a slight reach. Ain't nothing wrong with a slight reach. It's a good thing. It's a real good thing.
Well, let's kind of explore the other end of it then, because I do think, like all things, there's nothing that's just so pure and
it's
so
a dark
good.
Underbelly.
Yeah, that there's no point to critique it or no pitfalls to watch out for. And I think competition is no different. So I've got plenty on my list on the other end of the spectrum where it's okay, hey, we've talked up all these good things about competition, but what's on the other end of that you might want to watch out for, particularly if you got a certain personality type that's really locked onto certain things. And I'll let you start if you want, but I've got plenty to.
Yeah, this is all off
Yeah.
the cuff. And I don't have like any I wouldn't call it out by name anyway, but I don't have any like names. It's just, the wonders of the very smart people in Silicon Valley that create the algorithms and promote things to my phone. You'll see these shorts, videos, whatever, Instagram, whatever it is, like, I'll see, as I'm in the CrossFit world, strength and conditioning world, like the stuff fills my feed. And there's plenty of really dumb looking things that occur out there. Like, I'll just see what's clearly a competition going on. They get it roped off with caution tape and people are, getting fired up. And I look at like either how the gear's laid out or the people in proximity to other people. I'm like, oh, this is a horrible idea. Like, whatever's happening, this person's got a load locked out overhead that they're barely controlling, and so is rowing and has no idea that they're behind. I'm like, this is a catastrophe waiting to happen. So there's that, which is what I want to say. This is unregulated activity. You want to go ahead and probably do a due diligence that whether it's a very small mom and pop competition you're throwing down or whatever level it is, that it's well run. People got an idea what they got going on. They've some common sense has been issued and whatnot. That's one thing that would pop to my mind. And I'll just leave one more that I'll throw back to you and go back and forth. The other thing that I see every now and then, and I don't know if it's fair to say it's common or not common, but it jumps out to me when I see it. So maybe it sticks, maybe I think it's more frequent than it is. And this is just me as a programming nerd. Man.
Yeah.
I see some stuff for like local regular Joes that's some really, in my opinion, I'm not afraid to say, stupid programming where I think it's easy to get caught into the Tommy Toughnuts trap. And, I'm going to wow everybody with the loads that I chose. I'm going to wow everybody with how fatigued you're going to be before you do this other thing. I'm going to wow. And it's wildly unnecessary and inappropriate. And it's just for theater, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so, are really, as we know, like you can make some really miserable, challenging things without having to make a point at how quote unquote tough you made everything. So don't get me wrong, you want to issue a challenge to people, but you can do that in a way that is like, damn, like that was a good challenge, like well done. Or you're like, what were you thinking? Did you think that Pat Vellner was showing up to this? Like, what's happening? So just, throw that out there.
Yeah, I will piggyback on that and say wholeheartedly seconded. And I'll tell you, to be specific about it, what I see more often than not with a lot of competitions, no matter what level they're operating at, is way too much redundancy under this belief that you have to have 1 million events for it to be a legitimate test. And it's like, man, if you really want to be elegant about it, what you're looking to do is strip away everything that's unessential. And so, for example, if you've got a weekend throwdown that has 4 events, but 2 out of the 4 are roughly in that same time domain, and like, the movements, I mean, sure, there's some variety in them, but at the end of the day, there's not enough to make it really a distinct thing. It's like there's an obvious reduction there, and you're not really changing the outcome by having all of those things present. So I would really encourage anybody who's organizing a competition to take stock of like, what can we pare down on and really execute in a way that is awesome versus a ton of bells and whistles that you just feel like you have to include because that seems to be what people expect. That's not a great way to operate. So I'll say that, number one. And then number 2, I'll give you my all-time biggest pet peeve.
I can't wait.
Oh man, that
I can't wait.
Can rear its ugly head on the other end of competition. And that is when you have somebody who they've started doing this CrossFit thing, they've dove into it, it's become their identity, they're years deep now, 4, 5, 6 years deep, they've started competing. And now that they've done well kind of in those little local circuits or whatever, and maybe they're the top dog in their gym or they're getting close to it, there starts to be this separation in attitude around I need to be training in X way because I'm a super secret top athlete. You have no idea, Pat, but what I need and what I require is now somehow special. And you know what? You middle-aged woman who's coming in and just as dedicated as I am, but you don't compete on the weekends, and like you don't really care about what's on the leaderboard, you are somehow a different species than me, and you're going to feel that because my presence in the gym is somehow more important. I hate that attitude. I hate that attitude no matter how it shows up. If it happens on somebody who's just starting off with a chip on their shoulder because of some other past experience, or if they really are the kind of the top of the heap, top dog at their gym, man, it is just an instant repellent for me, and I can't mask it. I mean, hopefully you guys see this coming through, but like, I will instantly judge your character based on the way that you treat other people because of some arbitrary thing like that. And I think that is an awful culture to allow to develop within your affiliate if you're on the coaching end of that. So that's my biggest pitfall to avoid and to watch for as people get into this kind of competitive cycle, that they're not starting to create this division around, one person's preferred outlet versus another. That's crazy in my opinion, and just, you got to stamp it out.
I mean, I am right there with you, my friend. It's, we've been around this game for a while. I've been fortunate to rub elbows and interview with people that have an astonishing level of fitness.
Yeah.
And it's when I look back over everyone that I've met or whatnot, like, it's tough to articulate how much I just don't care that somebody was a games athlete, or I just don't care. I don't care that you made it to regionals and you've got a story about that you almost made it. I really don't care. And that's not supposed to be overly rude or shrug off, what you're chasing, what's really important to you. And what I mean by that is that I don't care is I don't think to myself, ooh, I'd like to hang out with this person because they've got a really monster back squat. That's not why I want to hang out with this person, like, because they're like a really cool person or whatever it happens to be. And if on top of that, they're also a beast, awesome.
Great.
Now, if I'm interviewing you about your athletic achievements, then we'll have a story, a conversation about that. But when we're talking about just like people that I enjoy being around, it's all those, not to make this a big, podcast about that, but it's those qualities of like individuals as a human being, integrity, how they treat other people, like you said, like that's first and foremost. And so don't lose those things as you try to achieve whatever the goal it is that you happen to do. I, respect the effort and all that stuff, but at the end of the day, for me anyway, it doesn't matter if somebody was in the NFL. It doesn't matter to me, whatever. It matters like who are they as a person. Now, if they're in the NFL or they're not a games athlete or they're whatever they happen to be, and they're at the top of their world, and they're also gracious and kind and humble, like, oh, then you're quite a top dog in my in my world. And those people are wonderful, and I think that is what you're talking about is what, I don't want to speak for a bunch of gym owners, but gym owners' nightmare, right? Is having this division where you get the 5 p.m. class, and most of the people who are going to keep your doors open are regular Joes. People in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. They have kids, they don't have kids, they got a 9 to 5, and they'd like to avoid chronic disease. They'd like to look good in the swimsuit. If you can get me fit, that'd be wonderful. And I'll watch the games or this throwdown on TV, and that's not
or
for
I'll
me.
go support my friends that go do it
I'll go
once in a
support my
while,
friends,
whatever.
all that good stuff. And so I always think like you should cater to those people because that's the overwhelming majority of the population. It's probably the overwhelming majority of your gym community. Those are the people that are going to pay your lease. Those are the people that are going to pay your trainer's fees. Those are the people going to do all that stuff. And if some division starts to happen because the quote unquote, you've got a group of people that have let things go in a direction that they shouldn't. They've become the cool kids. They're doing the cool stuff in the corner. We're going to use this gear tonight because we need it for our training. And it's statistically a very small segment of your gym's population. I've just been around long enough to see that usually doesn't end well for anybody involved. And it spreads a bad vibe in the gym, and a bad vibe in the gym is contagious.
Yeah.
That's all.
Totally agree, man. To kind of expand on a thought you had around, okay, somebody's got a high level of achievement. Like I kind of approach it in the same way as I would in any other field. It's like if I meet a doctor or a lawyer or somebody who's at the top of their game, it's like, hey, I respect that there is an effort and time commitment and a dedication in your life to be able to get to that point.
Absolutely.
Doesn't give you a character pass though. And that's true for whatever achievement people are wanting to, present themselves with. whether that's a physical achievement or some other pursuit. It's like, hey, that's great, and I can respect it for what it is. But make no mistake, it's not the only thing that you're going to have your, your well-rounded assessment of somebody based on.
For sure. I mean, you get somebody that's, been a games champion and they just have a massive chip in their shoulder, like a Ben Smith. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just you can feel the ego in the room. You can feel the attitude, just showboating all the time.
It's a joke for those of you.
I was
going to
say, for anybody who does not
yeah.
know Ben Smith, he's just he's one of those people like who's talk about a career that and a level of consistency that you would like to replicate. I mean, just a fit, fast, strong, ferocious animal, beast, competitor, and just sit next to you in the humblest guy in the world and would much rather talk about what you have going on than talk about his own accomplishments. Like, it's a cool mug, it can be done. Yeah. I've seen it done. It can be done.
Absolutely. Well, I've got one last thought here on the ugly side.
I was going to say, I feel like I derailed that. My apologies.
No, you're all good, man. So I think the other end, and this is again an attitude that can start to develop as people get more and more invested in the competition outlet. They kind of move beyond those healthy things that we talked about, the commitment, having something to look forward to, having an outlet for all the fitness that you've built up. On the affiliate side, again, having your members be a little bit more consistent because they've got something to train for, all very positive, right? On the other end of that, I think you can start to see certain behaviors that are built up around competitive outlets that don't necessarily fall in line with developing fitness broadly. So we talked about this actually a little bit on the last episode. So my training, and it's kind of insidious, it might start to skew towards no matter what, I have to have a good time on the clock every single time that I train. And so my entire thinking about every workout that I do is how do I maximize for the time? Even if that means I'm sidestepping some other really good training benefit, it doesn't matter because competitive outcome is the only thing that matters, even if that might hold me back in the long run. It's one of those kind of weird mindsets. And you can see that with some other things that are, in my opinion, kind of antithetical to CrossFit. People being okay, having a little flexibility around support gear that I use. Do I train with a belt? Do I train with my shoes? Do I not? Is it okay if I just happen to forget those in my gym bag for the day? Or is it a catastrophe because I know that might be the difference between a couple pounds on my back squat?
Right.
As soon as that mindset becomes rigid in that way, I think you're sidestepping a lot of what CrossFit was all about in the first place, which is, hey, we're adaptable. Hey, things are going to be unpredictable. Hey, you know what? You're going to have what you have on that day at that time, and you're going to have to show up and step up and do it anyway. And so is that the attitude you're developing, or are you narrowing yourself into this expression where it has to be perfect, otherwise I'm just not satisfied? So I think there's some weird attitudes that can start to develop on that end that you also have to be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. And I would just say, I was to talk about like training as well, because what you can get into that, like you're having fun, right? CrossFit can be an addiction. That's what people love it, and they crave it. And now you may have opened up a new addiction with competitions, training for competitions, and just be cognizant of. It can be really easy to fall into the next competition. The last one was challenging. There was multiple events a day. I'm gonna bump up my training. Makes sense, right? Follow the bouncing ball on that. I'm going to start to add in a little extra lifting here. I'm going to start to do this other conditioning session here. I'm going to start to do this. And all of a sudden, you've doubled or tripled or more the workload that your body is. And you're probably a regular human being, like I said, that has a family and a job and all that, and is trying to just get some sleep in the middle of the night after dealing with the kids and all this stuff. And the load that you've asked your body, your musculature, your central nervous system to endure has significantly increased because of this new passion. Cool. Everybody's built different. Everybody has a different tolerance. Just make sure you're being really honest with yourself about, are you balancing it well? Is everything actually still moving in the right directions? Are your mixed modality Metcons getting faster? Your lifts going up? You got more rounds of Cindy? Is your sleep still solid and good? Mood level, stress, anxiety, like fatigue, like all of those things. Is everything? Just take a good, honest assessment, and see
Yeah.
what, how much water can you have in your bucket before it starts to overflow, and you're just making a mess on the floor that you shouldn't have, because it's really, really easy to keep adding a little here and a little here, and then you're working hard, and so you can kind of write off in your head why your right knee's a little achy. It's a little achy, but had a heavy week. I'm gonna get a deload week next week. It's gonna be just fine. No, it's not. You probably should take 2 weeks off, but you won't, because you'll feel that you're slipping behind.
Yeah.
And that, so I'm just saying, just be honest with yourself. And those, the high level athletes that I spoke about before, I mean, the ones we interview that are open and honest, they'll tell you, they're walking around, a lot of them are banged up. They're asking a huge amount from their body on a regular basis, and that check becomes due every now and then. And so you probably don't have the time that they do to recover, do all these different protocols that they potentially do to help aid in this incredibly intense and high volume of training that they're doing. So just be honest with yourself, that's all.
Yeah, and I think what you said in there is really the nuance where I don't think a lot of people consider, which is it's okay to be all in on something and like fall in love with something, and like you're just like, that's all you can think about, that's all you want to be doing. You're like, dude, both feet in the deep end, let's go. I'm competing every weekend, my training is ramping up, and you're stoked. Hey man, I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying that there is a window with which you will be able to do that for most of us. And something's going to change down the road. It could be 6 months, it could be a year. Maybe the training volume's too much. Maybe your life circumstance changes, whatever. And the nuance that you pointed out that I think not enough people really give credit to is how flexible are you when that condition changes for you to go back to like a more quote regular training? And do you freak out at that point? Is your head like telling you, I am not doing enough? There's no way I can be making progress. I have to get back to this crazy inflated training sense that I was when I was all in. That to me, I think is the real unsung difficulty, right? It's one thing to be like, dude, I am all in this summer. I'm going nuts. I'm training 2-3 times a day. We're going to see how far we can push this. And then you get some competitions under your belt. You come back to life, 6 months later, and you're like, okay, that was fun. I'm back to just regular 3-4 days a week training, and it's no problem. And I can make that adjustment. Hey, that's probably a pretty healthy approach. But for a lot of people, they get stuck in that more, even if the competitive fire starts to die down, that mindset sticks around and they can't readjust. And I think that's something you got to watch out for.
Yeah, no, 100%. Well, hopefully this was beneficial to folks. And like I said, local comps are fun. Like you should throw down. You should, get outside your bubble and throw down. And just to piggyback,
support your affiliate mates and like their training partners that want to do that. That's great too. Even if you're not competing, like just go support them. It's fun.
Right. And to piggyback on what you said, like when we both had our little rants, just to make sure it's clear, if you're a pediatric neurologist and a jerk, I don't care. If you're a pediatric neurologist and cool, or you're an athlete, or you're a CrossFitter, or you're in Delta Force, I don't care. Like cool people are cool people to be around, regardless of what you got. And that popped into my head, not to keep us on here longer, but like
no, it's all good.
Some really cool high level athletes, that I won't put you in the spot. I don't want to have you, because then if you mention somebody like, well, Boz didn't mention me, he must not think that I'm cool. But I think of people that like were so physically capable and so cool to be around that you never know like the beast that they were, like a Sam Briggs.
Yeah, great example.
Becca Voigt.
Yep. Oh man. Yep.
I mean, some folks like that just you'd sit down and just chat, and they're just talking to you. Hey, how you going? What's going on with your family? Like, you're some good people out there. So anyway, be a good person. And then you get somebody like Jason Khalipa, who God bless Jason. What an absolute animal.
I can't wait to hear what you say.
I was going to say, Jason always has such a warm spot in my heart because he's such a ferocious animal. That I don't even know if he knows
Right.
the
How
capacity
different
that
he
he
is,
has.
yeah.
You know,
For sure. Yeah.
like I feel like if he could like rip your hand out, or your arm out of
Yeah.
the socket if he wanted to. And I would just like mercilessly, like, when I was like used to be on air, like say stuff about him and trying to be funny, but sometimes I'm sure I crossed the line. And every time I saw him, he had tears in his eyes, like laughing about it, like just the best like heart, like. And then he would make fun of me.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of good folks out there, and I got to give Jason. I said some
Yeah.
stuff on air about Jason that. God bless him. He's an absolute beast. I remember this will be my short little tangent that we'll get off. I remember saying something that like he was like a crazed like chimpanzee or orangutan that like the government had like injected muscles into and was like running around Los Angeles like destroying buildings and stuff.
An experiment of sorts.
An experiment of sorts. And next time I saw him, he like, slapped my back so hard he almost dislocated my spine. And just thought it was the funniest thing he's ever heard in his life. So I'm like,
that's great.
He's good people. But
Yep.
anyway, okay, everybody. Thoughts on this? I'm sure people have some very opinionated thoughts on comps, local comps, the good, the bad, the ugly. What do you think? Find this episode on the btwb YouTube channel. Post your thoughts on the comments, pros, cons, or whatever you have. Do you have an idea for a future show? Let us know. We read all those things and they drive where the show goes. You can go to the Varied Not Random Instagram account. You can post a public comment. We'll see that. Or you can send a direct message privately if you don't want your name to be out there, and we'll get those as well. So for Adrian Bosman, I'm Pat Sherwood, and we will see you next time.